So today will be our first episode on a series I'm going to run within the Vet Talk podcast, Perspectives on Veterinary Medicine. I'm hoping that this will allow us to, wherever we are in our career as veterinarians, get some perspective. Whether we're a new vet, a vet who's been out there a few years, or a vet who's closer to retirement. So we can kind of compare to other people and just not live in such a isolated manner as veterinarians do. Hopefully this will be helpful to vets out there, and hopefully it will give some idea of what other vets have gone through and maybe give some light to what you're going through now, as well as just some interesting historical information. So we'll get started with our first guest, Dr. J.T. Williams.
So thanks for joining us again, JT. You're becoming the most, besides myself, the most frequent voice on the podcast that's heard.
So is this like on SNL when I get to, the five-time five-time appearance, I get some kind of prize?
I'll work on your prize.
Okay, all right.
But thank you for doing this episode because I'm trying, I don't know, I guess trying to create something for you to think back about on your career some, for vet students coming out to kind of, just hear what it's really like and what they might be getting themselves into. Because even coming out of vet school, I don't think you really know.
No, you're right.
And also and for me personally, I'm growing in the profession, going through things and wanting to hear from seasoned practitioners because I've been depressed about certain parts and happy about others. And I'm just like, I think vets in general at any age need to hear what other people have gone through because we're very insular, I think, a lot of times.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of hoping to let other people hear what other vets have done. So I appreciate you sharing some of this stuff.
My pleasure.
But I guess we'll get started. What got you into vet medicine? Were you 2 years old and knew you wanted to be a veterinarian?
Yeah, so I grew up in Maysville, Kentucky, and as you know, in Kentucky, there's no vet school. So it was one of those things where, no, I was not a little kid, always wanted to be a vet. I was not that. But I did always, love animals, and it was always kind of in the back of my head, but not the front. And then as I went through undergrad, I fell in love with biology and got to be where, well, what am I going to do? Well, I wasn't sure. So I went to the University of Kentucky, did a couple of years of graduate school there. And, then vet school was a little bit more, rolling about in my head, but a big hang up for reasons I won't go into, but personal reasons. I didn't really want to go too far away from home. And of course, Auburn has the reciprocal agreement with, having some seats, and that was an awful long way from home. So,
like the driving time.
yeah. And so at the time, I was just getting married, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to apply to vet school, and they'll tell me what I need to do to get in, and I'll go from there. So I applied to the University of Tennessee, which was only 4 hours from my home. 3 hours. I was actually living in Lexington at the time, so just 3 hours. And lo and behold, they took me. So after that, that's that kind of, I guess the rest is history. But the thing that really drew me to veterinary medicine, as I said, I was I fell in love with biology in undergrad, and I liked the anatomy and physiology and all that. But I can't say I ever really wanted to be a physician either. And one of the reasons that is I didn't think I wanted to focus on one area. I liked everything. And in veterinary medicine, I saw the opportunity to kind of do everything. You are a cardiologist, a dermatologist, an anesthesiologist, a surgeon, and you can do ophthalmologist, internal medicine, on and on and on. And the other thing is, I also had an interest in business. I actually was an accounting major when I went into undergrad, and I could even do that, and I do that. So that was really the allure of veterinary medicine to me, was the ability to do a little bit of everything.
And as well, your accounting helps you because you own your own business, which helps you with
Right.
that. But
Yeah.
also, and I've learned a lot from your business management, which I always appreciate. But owning your own business or just being a vet, I think you can guide yourself where you want.
Yeah.
I don't like doing orthopedic work, so I don't do much orthopedic work, but I really
Yeah.
like it. So, and as a business owner, you have a lot more freedom, I think, than just a graduate coming out of school as well. So,
Yeah, that's true. Because when I graduated, I did not think when I went through school, I thought I'm going to do small animal. Of course, I had to learn everything. And then when I got out, the job that was offered to me was a mixed animal practice.
yeah.
So, wasn't a big fan, but I did it until the point in which I got to the position where I didn't have to. I didn't hate it by any stretch. I actually enjoyed those years, but it's like you said, now I have the ability or the to pick and choose. And, now I have a part-time veterinarian who is not fond of surgery,
Hmm.
and I like surgery.
So you,
So,
yeah,
now I say, you don't have to do any if you don't want. I'll do it all.
I'll do it.
And
Yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
and so that's worked out well.
to a point, you have to pay the bills, but to a point, it's your own adventure too.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
How long have you, when I made the questions for this, I'm hopefully going to interview some people just out of vet school too. And
Right.
I put it, the young graduates, and then I put for us, the seasoned practitioners. But how long have you been practicing?
I started July 1st, 1993. So 30, well, going on 30 and a half years.
Huh, yeah, my numbers keep going up too, but I don't think I'll catch up to you.
Yeah. If you do catch me, it means something happened to me, right?
I guess so. So where all have you worked? Did you went straight out of vet school to where you
So
are?
graduated University of Tennessee in May of 93. I had interviewed several places, wanted to come back even, closer to home. Interviewed a few places. There was no really good fit. So we ended up back home living with my mother. We had one young son, 2-year old at the time. And while I was, we had to land somewhere. So we were here. I was still interviewing places, but a position came open in one of the two vet clinics in my hometown, kind of unexpectedly. And that's where I started July 1st, 1993, and have been there ever since.
Which you must like it there.
Yes, yes. There were Doctors Jim Boyd and Dr. Jack Hayden were the two owners at the time, two very, very great mentors. Our personalities just meshed immediately. Then in 96, I bought Jim's half of the practice. 2001, I bought Jack's half, and I've been sole owner since. I've had a couple of associates in
Yeah,
between there, but mostly it's been, solo.
had a wonderful relief veterinarian, right?
Absolutely. Yes. It was the godsend.
That that's still my favorite interview thing because I basically went to you and said I don't want to work for you, and you said you don't want to hire me, and I ended up working for you for 10 years.
That's
So
right.
uh,
Yes.
so how have you seen the profession change over the years, for better or for worse?
Well,
Seen a few changes, I'm sure.
yeah. And again, I mean, there have been some that are nationwide and then some local, which they pretty much probably, I guess, parallel each other. But personally, as I said, I started out in the mixed animal practice that was about 50-50, large versus small. When Jack retired in 2001, it was about 90-10. The large animal just took a nosedive.
Yeah.
And so, I have, as far as personally, that the decrease in, or actually the cessation of me practicing large animal medicine is one thing.
Hmm.
The other thing that is, I think, a good thing for me, I don't know about my clients would agree, but earlier in those days, it was just expected and people did their own emergency work. We were on call every third week. There were three of us, so we rotated every
Yeah.
third weekend and at night. And it could be quite stressful, overwhelming, taxing, whatever
Yeah.
adjective you want to use. And then, in being in a rural county, or small county, I should say, a small area, we're 60 miles from Cincinnati and 60 miles from Lexington. Even those places didn't have a lot of emergency clinics, but
Hmm.
there was certainly nothing close. But then over time, it got to the point where, for me anyway, the standard of care that was required for emergencies got to the point where I couldn't, or I didn't feel like I was given what needed to be given. And I felt more comfortable referring, especially the real emergencies, GDVs, that sort of thing,
Yeah.
to places that, and suddenly, not suddenly, I guess, but when I was growing up in high school, and I had a friend that lived out where my clinic is now, it's 5 miles from my house. It seemed like it was more of a trip to get out there,
Hmm.
because the roads were different,
Yep.
cars were different. And now I drive that, I go back and forth 3 times a day. So
Yeah.
it's not that big of a deal. Same thing with 45 minutes away. If
Yeah.
if back in 1993, I was like, you go to the emergency clinic 45 minutes away, people quite would balk at it quite a bit.
Yeah.
They don't now, because some people are driving that every day to go to work.
Yeah. I
So
just
that,
noticed when we went a few weeks ago when we came down to Maysville, I'm like, this road is straighter. And
yeah,
it was pretty
yeah,
straight when I was taking it
yeah.
more regularly.
Yeah. A couple of other things. One is how, and this is a worldwide thing, technology, if you will, how we're getting paid. When I first started, they did not accept credit cards.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
it was,
Okay.
cash or check. A lot of people wrote checks, and you took them and whatever. And now there are some days where we won't have any cash or we won't have any checks. We typically have one or the other, but by and large, it's all
Yeah.
cards.
I've been amazed how I've seen that too. And
Yeah.
just everything's on a credit card for good, for bad. I mean, I like it as a business owner because it's, you know,
Yeah. I mean, and my
secure.
my previous the previous owners were hesitant to do that. First of
Mhm.
all, because they didn't have it wasn't nearly as
Advanced.
yeah, and but they also didn't want to pay that fee.
Yeah.
Well, my thought that is if I give somebody uh, more options with how to pay, then
Yeah.
they're more likely to spend more money and it'll cover that fee. And the fee is just a cost of doing business. And, you can incorporate that into your prices if you want.
Yeah.
So when, again, when I became owner, I did that. And I mean, it was definitely a good thing. And you're going to have to do it eventually anyway.
And I kind of do it like you do because I always, I mean, I know I'm paying for it somewhere because it's
Yeah.
passed on in every business.
Yep.
But when people put the charge separately, it just kind of bothers me in my mind.
Yes.
But,
Yeah.
so yeah, I've never put that as a extra charge. So
No.
it's built
I've
in.
discussed that with my staff, and we all agree that that's just kind of is a put off, I think. Then the
So,
other thing, which is really big, and I have to admit again, I went kicking and screaming into the paperless void. But when I started, everything was paper. Matter of fact, ours were little hanging folders. I mean, um, they
oh,
were
the half
they
ones.
kind of half. Yeah, they were
Sure.
bigger than index cards, but they were,
Yeah.
yeah. And you had somebody that had several animals and
It's
those
that big.
things would get pretty thick. So
Yeah.
then I switched eventually to more of the full size paper
Paper.
folders that you'll see in doctors'
Folders.
offices with the little tags with the years. And we did that one year and it was better, but still you had to rely on people knowing the alphabet to file them correctly.
Yes.
And then it became the paperless, and I don't believe anything's paperless. It might be paper light, but with the use of scanners now. But and people would always say, and I'd read the articles, paperless. I never wanted to do it, but when I did it, it was great. Blah blah blah. I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. Um, then I did it, and it is great.
I did it very early. I'm glad. What I find weird is because I watched you make the transition. I was very happy you did.
Yeah.
But the students come out and they don't remember that they don't. Some of them haven't seen the charts. So like
Uh,
my computer program says chart number,
uh-huh.
and then so when we're writing the paperwork for the blood work that we send off, it asks for a chart number, and I'm like, yeah, just get the chart number off the computer, and they don't realize that that is initially from a hanging chart.
A physical thing. Yeah.
Physical, yeah, they don't get that connection, and I'm just like, what? How old am I? It's just,
Yeah. I guess
you know,
now they're EMRs, right? Electronic medical records,
yeah, they,
not charts.
yeah, because
I still call them charts.
I do too. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's funny that you some of those things because I when I came up with this question, I was thinking you I don't know talk about kind of how kind of more what you said with your coverage of stuff and the ER clinics, not kind of the technology of the credit cards and
Yeah.
the charts, but I mean that's really big. It's how it really has affected how everyone practices and stuff.
Yeah. Because the thing that has not changed and I don't think will ever change and should not change is or are things like the physical exam.
Yeah,
There's nothing, almost nothing going to give you more information than getting your hands on that animal.
yeah,
And there's no substitute for it. So, that's that you can have the blood machines, which is another thing that was, when I first started, we didn't have in-house blood work. You had to send it
yeah,
off and that was, so that was a big advancement for me. Um, but but there are some things in human and veterinary medicine that are just so basic that and essential that they need not and should not change, such as the
yeah.
physical
And,
exam.
and that's the fun part, right? Getting your hands
Yeah,
on the animal.
yeah.
Did you used to send some of your blood to the human hospitals? Someone told me
Yes.
that.
Yes,
Yeah.
we did. We had a deal with the human hospital, and we would actually they would come out and get it.
Oh
Put it
wow.
on the front porch, and they'd come. They gave us a little box, a little insulated box, and they'd come out and get it, and they would run it for us.
Huh.
Um,
I
and
don't
it
think my
was,
doctor would do that today.
yeah. And well, they've eventually stopped. And I would also used to run down radiographs, the film when our processor would go down. Now, of course, they have digital, so that's not the case. I haven't gone that road yet, and that's not because I don't want to, but I just
It
haven't
is a
found the
big
right.
expense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a big expense. Yeah.
Yeah. I do love my digital, but I got as much warranty as I could on it
Yeah.
when I
Yeah. Yeah.
um so speaking of the exam and stuff, have you seen new dis well you we just recorded our parvo episode that you
Yeah.
did. But have you seen new diseases pop up since you've been practicing, or have you seen diseases that I wouldn't see because they're gone now?
The one that pops into my mind and that fits into that latter category is distemper. Have you ever seen a case of distemper?
I uh, I may have in like raccoons, is
Okay. Yeah.
wild animals maybe,
Because when I
because
was I'm
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I just saying in wild animals with some of the wildlife rescue, I might have, but I don't think I've ever seen it in a dog or cat
Yeah.
or yeah.
So we spend a lot of time about that in school. And again, that's one that, if you listen to our Parvo episode, we talk about vaccination a lot. That is one that the vaccine has probably pretty much eradicated or pretty close to it anyway. Although I did hear of some outbreak here recently again. But
Yeah.
it was one that, it was difficult to diagnose. You had to, it might be better now, but you had to do titers. You did a conjunctival scrape, and I
Mm,
learned how to do all that. I did see a couple of cases early on. I think I told you in the parvo episode, I had one that had parvo, and then it came down with distemper, and
yeah.
I
Yeah.
diagnosed that. I mean, I knew it, but I probably have only seen that I know of, half a dozen, and those
Yeah.
were all in my first probably 5 or 6 years out.
Yeah. 'Cause
So
I didn't think when I saw it in the rescue, I'm like, huh, I've never seen this in a companion animal.
yeah,
Uh, and it wasn't a firm diagnosis because wildlife rescue work, and we were like, well, this
yeah,
is not going
yeah,
to be,
yeah.
but yeah,
Now, on the
uh,
other end, the one that has emerged greatly in my career is Lyme disease.
oh yeah,
We learned about it. We learned about it from Lyme County, Connecticut. It was just in the Northeast.
hmm
It was carried by the deer tick, blah, blah, blah. And then as slowly as the years went on, you would kind of hear of, and they even did a study once of some hunters where they would, when they would kill a deer, that somebody would, I'm sure some graduate student would pluck the ticks off of it and they'd check them for Lyme, and, there weren't any.
yeah,
And then slowly but surely, with the change in climate and, the travel and everything, then a few cases would start popping up, until now we use the 4DX from
mm,
IDEX to test for those. I mean, this past year, there was one point I was seeing a Lyme case a week.
yeah. I
And
feel
I
I've
mean,
seen.
and so, it went from in Kentucky 0 to now, I wouldn't even want to know. And a lot of them, then we do the Quant C6 to see if it is an active infection. And, I don't know that number, but over half of them are, probably closer to 75% are. And
Yeah,
I know some people, some
that
personal friends that have had it, and they've had some devastating effects in
yeah.
humans from it.
I'm seeing it in dogs as much as you are, I'm quite sure, and I'm seeing it in horses too.
I didn't
Um,
even think about that. Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, I've got a I'll have a podcast episode out about that because that's even more not cutting edge, but there's a lot of debate in the horse world how to handle and diagnose and stuff like that.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah.
So it's been interesting listening to the lectures and seeing all the weird effects that Lyme disease can have because
Yeah.
it affects so much of the body for so
Yeah.
long.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I didn't think about Lyme disease because that's kind of since I've started practicing,
Yeah.
um, been getting more dramatic, at least
Yeah.
here in Lyme,
Yeah. Here,
Connecticut.
definitely.
They've dealt with it, so
Yeah.
that's interesting. Any other diseases or anything?
I mean, I've actually seen a decrease in heartworm, and I would like to say it's due to my um
Yeah,
my pushing of the preventatives, but I don't know that we do a really good job of that.
yeah,
But we certainly test for it. I mean, obviously we're testing everyone we find Lymes, we're testing for heartworm too.
that's
So
true.
I don't understand why that is in this area, why it's gone in my practice the way gone down. I'm glad.
Yeah, well, that's a
Um,
good thing. Yeah,
but there's nothing else that jumps out at me besides that.
yeah. So this is close to my heart. Are there any drugs? Because I am on my last two bottles of Primor, and it hurts me that they have discontinued that drug. Um, I
Yes.
don't know why it's a great drug. But are there any drugs you miss because they don't make them, or do you some of these new drugs? Are you like, I'm so glad I have this now?
So Primor is one that I used. And before that it was the old SMZ TMP tablets. I don't know. I don't think they make those anymore. I can still get the liquid, but
Did I start you on Primor?
no, I had it before.
Okay. I couldn't
Yeah.
remember. Never
You
mind.
just you just used the heck out of it while you were there.
Yeah, I love that drug.
I'll tell you one that I do miss. And you may not have, it may have been gone before you even started. Did you ever use Solu Delta Cortef?
Yeah, yeah, it's a liquid steroid, right?
Yeah, yeah. And
I
the
in
drug rep,
horses, that's all I use.
I
That's all.
wasn't there, but the drug rep would come in and he said, when he sold it to him, he said, "This is life in a bottle." And obviously that's not the case, but I do miss that in especially in things like hit by cars,
Okay.
traumatic, where you need a really quick acting steroid. It didn't last very long. The other thing though, it was cool the way it mixed. It had that vial with a
That's
rubber
what,
stopper between it.
and you like pushed or
You
something.
pushed it down to mix it. Yeah, that was always cool.
Yeah. We used it, I can't even remember for what, when I was a preceptor at Park Equine. I'm trying to remember what we used it for, but I remember, yeah, pushing it down, and
Yeah,
I haven't seen it since then. Is it gone, or
yeah, it's
do
gone.
it's gone?
It's
Okay,
gone.
well, that might be
Yeah.
why I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's totally gone. The other one was an old anesthetic that I was trained on in school, thiopental,
Okay, yeah,
that
I,
short
I've read
acting
about that.
barbiturate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we used it in everything,
Hmm.
pre-medic, pre anesthetic. And it wasn't too long after I graduated that it went away. So I had to kind of readjust. As far as new drugs, methatomidine, I
Oh,
like
yeah.
it. I I like the new. Okay, so let me back up. When I got out of school, there was the flea treatments were, the bombs, the flea
Mhm.
sprays, the the dips, that kind of stuff. So when you talk about a new drug, to me, Frontline was revolutionary.
Yeah.
Okay, in 1995 or whenever it came out. But those that whole family of flea control drugs has been nothing short of revolutionary for the veterinary industry and more importantly for the pets.
Yeah.
Um, so I won't even go into those, but the other ones would be these newer antipyretics, Epiquel,
Oh, yeah. That. Yeah.
Cytopoint. Those two specifically because we're able to get away from the steroids more
Mhm.
and not have those effects while still giving those animals relief.
Yeah.
I think those have been really good, and I think there's going to be even more to come. Not necessarily in that
Yeah.
vein, but
Just the amount of new drugs are popping each year. There seems to be a
yeah,
bunch of good new drugs, and
yeah,
it's almost mind-boggling.
yeah. But I would say those are the biggies for me.
Yeah. What about what equipment has made you happy during your career?
So as I mentioned before, the in-house lab made me
Yeah.
happy. And I know for you young folks, that's going to be no big deal. But imagine doing it without it.
Hmm.
Okay. And again, I can send it to the hospital, but still it's an overnight thing. So that would, I had a laser for a few years, and when I miss it, I really miss it.
It
If
was
that
good
makes
for very
sense
good certain things. It was
for
really good.
certain things. But when it died, it was not worth the investment for
Yeah.
those things, to do that again. So I enjoyed it while I had it. As I said, I have not gotten into digital radiography. I would love to because those images are very, very nice. And I probably will at some point before I retire, I would guess, but that time's not right now.
And there's a learning curve to it too, which is because you see so much more.
Yeah,
Because
I
I
bet.
when I would do relief or at my place when I had the digital, and then I'd come down to yours, I was like, whoa, wait, I have to retrain my mind. Now in
Yeah,
vet school, I don't know how many, films I looked at. So it's like I've done this, I know this, but I had to readjust and be
yeah,
like,
right.
you
Yeah.
know,
Of course, when
uh,
I got out of school, we still had the tanks of Fixer Developer and water where we would, hand dip them. And
I was thinking the processor, but no, you mean
no, no,
the hand.
no,
Yeah.
the hand dip. And then we got another processor, automatic processor, not too long after I I started, and then the one I have now, I've had for, oh goodness, decades probably,
I
and
don't
it's
know how
still,
many. Yeah, I don't know
yeah, I
how
mean,
many clinics I've been in where I there are certain rooms I can still I know exact if I close my eyes because that's what I had to do to
yes,
develop. I know exactly where everything still is,
yeah,
unless you move something.
nope,
You know, that's all kind of the work stuff, but how did you maintain, because work-life balance is big.
yeah,
And I think, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like it wasn't, I shouldn't say it wasn't big, but maybe not paid as much attention to in the past.
okay, so
Is that a fair?
my, yeah, my, and I kind of feel like I'm the generation that has kind of, I don't want to say bridged that gap because I don't mean to say we bridged it, but I've seen both sides because
Yeah,
my mentors were ones that, as I said, they were on call every night.
yeah,
And one of them, I remember him saying, and again, this was even farther back, probably in the 60s, I would guess. His wife went to the hospital to have a baby, and he went in with her and paid, I think he said $150 to the doctor and said, I'll be back. I gotta go pull a calf.
yeah,
And that was not abnormal.
yeah,
That was everybody was okay with that because that's just the way it was.
yeah,
Um, I'm not sure anybody could get by with that today.
yeah,
I mean, depending on your wife, I guess.
yeah.
But first of all, you wouldn't be handing $150 maybe as a copay, but
That's a
um,
different.
yeah. But so I saw that I saw that level of work ethic, if you will, but by the same token, I realized that because I had one child when I graduated,
Mhm.
had another one 2 years after, I had ended up having four. So I realized that if I practiced that way, I was going to miss a lot of
Yeah,
my kids, and that just was not worth it to me. So I
yeah.
made a conscious effort again when I was in the position to have that choice
I,
to, to not miss. I was willing to sacrifice some income
yeah.
in order to be part of my kids' lives.
I'm glad you said that. I feel like that needs to be a part of the discussion that I keep reading about in articles because I, well, I've been on call, a lot,
Yeah,
and I appreciated the experience I got from it. But when
yeah,
I got, like you said, when I've got to certain points, I've been happy to say, I can say, well, this last year I stopped seeing after hour emergencies, or well, I'll still see them if they call before 6, but you know,
right.
and I've appreciate the time I've gotten back for my family and
Yeah,
friends.
yeah, yeah. And I said my children, I should include my wife in there too, obviously, because
Yeah,
it just was not going to be worth it to me.
yeah,
And I knew I would never be able to get those years, that time back,
yeah,
as at the growing up and so that's a choice I made, and I was fortunate enough to be in the position to make it.
yeah,
But also being on the employer end, I feel like I would be, and I have been to my employees, and I'm not talking about all my employees, not just veterinarians that worked for me,
yeah,
cognizant of those things.
yeah,
That, if they had kids, if they had other stuff, I understand. I've been in that position, and I understand them wanting that time off, and I hope that I have throughout the years been accommodating to that.
do you I always felt like you did a good job with that, so
Thank you.
I do you feel like you, looking back, did you get the work life, and you've talked how it's kind of a moving goalpost as things in your life change, but do you felt like you achieved that, or maybe I should say, do you feel like you achieved that
I,
at various points of your life?
I personally do. The thing that I probably didn't do well was the time off that I took, as far as like family vacations,
Mhm.
was usually, and I know a lot of vets do this, and I know it's probably not the right thing to do. It was usually centered around a convention. So
Yeah, yeah,
I get my CE, we could still call it use it as a vacation and do they could do other stuff. And I would go a few days before, stay a few days after, so I could do stuff with them too. But you know what I mean? It probably would have
yeah.
been better for me to do that and then take a separate time off to
To
just for, you know
your
what I mean?
focus was divided. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. But I don't think, I mean, I still think it was important that we all went
yeah,
together,
yeah.
even if it was that sort of thing. But I have a really hard time just taking a day off and being home because I have that thought, especially
What?
being an owner and you have
Yeah,
responsibilities where you feel like you got to make money so you can
yeah,
pay these people because they're relying on you. You know what I mean? I
yeah.
have a hard time sitting here
And that
and
technology you mentioned, someone can text you a question, right?
yes, and that's helped. And
Yeah,
that's helped. And actually having Dr. Raymer, my part-time associate now, has really helped because,
yeah,
and when you were there,
yeah.
it was much easier for me to go and do something like go Christmas shopping for my kids
Hmm.
or take the weekend off with my wife like I would in November's, then you would cover me.
Yeah,
It was much more, my mind was at peace because, no matter what you say, you have a license in that clinic, you're going to be able to take in more revenue
yeah,
than, the assistants and technicians that I left there could do so much,
yeah.
but it's that license that really, really
And
brings in the money.
and at the same, I had to make I just got my appendix out.
Uh-huh.
I had to make a conscious decision not to push myself too quickly because I'm like,
Yeah,
I need to take care of myself. Yet I'm like, I need to make money for,
yeah,
myself and the clinic and the staff that are there. And then there's animals that they're not going
yeah.
anywhere else either. So yeah,
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
a lot.
it is tough, and that always is pulling. It always been pulling at me. But I
Yeah.
do feel like, in answer to the original question, I do feel like that I have achieved a pretty good balance
W-
overall.
would you have said that 15 years ago when you were thinking about that?
Uh, I would have said yes. I think I would have, and I also would have said that that is my plan because my youngest would have 15 years ago he'd have been 5.
Yeah.
So, at that point, and the oldest would have been probably just graduating high school. So, I would have said I think I've done it okay right now because I would always go to their after schools, the academic matches, the
Yeah.
basketball, the soccer, the softball, baseball, all of those. I hit all of those, and so I would say yes, and I plan to continue to do it.
Good.
15 years ago.
Which I guess you probably don't have academic matches to go to. One of my friends
No.
went and they said they had a parents versus students on the
Oh,
buzzers. The parents, who most of them I knew were on the team academic team back when I was on it. Apparently,
yeah.
the parents smoked the children. So,
Good for them.
so yeah, that's good to hear. I'm curious as I do more interviews what people the younger vets will say versus the older on that question.
Yeah, I'll be anxious to listen to that episode to hear what they have to say.
Because I'm also, and I'm hoping to do multiple episodes too, so spread it out and just so, because I'm curious with myself, because I've realized personally, I'm like, I think I'm achieving what I want. Maybe I was a little slow sometimes, but I'm
Yeah.
getting to that spot. And when I wasn't doing it, maybe how I wanted, it taught me how to be more protective of certain things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't think I have regrets for sure on that front, but I also know what it's like to be on call all that time,
Yeah.
so it's so that, but that's good. What has been I guess this kind of goes along with some. What's been your favorite and least favorite part of the career of your career?
So
Getting
my
get
my
better, I'm sure. You're not at your zenith yet.
right, yeah. I'm gonna have a drop the mic. I'm gonna be at my best my last day. Um,
Yeah,
I going back to what I said at the beginning about getting into veterinary medicine, I think that has been my favorite part is that um, I can be so many different things. And uh, like I said, the business part, I really enjoy doing that, but I don't know that I would have wanted to do only that for
yeah,
my career.
yeah.
And so that I think is and I always wanted to be an owner. I know
Mhm.
there at least what I hear is, at least there was a period of time where the new graduates really didn't want ownership, and maybe that's still the way it is. I don't know. But that was not me. When I was interviewing for a job 30 years ago, that's one of the things that I was looking for was the opportunity, not right away, obviously,
Yeah.
but to
Only
eventually own.
stupid people do that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Although I had that offer, there was
oh yeah,
a vet in Louisville that was looking to hire somebody, and he wanted to retire to Belize or Costa Rica, someplace. And I was like, no, I can't do that because
yeah,
I didn't feel like I knew anything, and I didn't know less now. But anyway, least favorite would have to be, and I'm gonna qualify this because I have worked with some company included, some really nice people that I've really enjoyed working with. And going to work every day was a pleasure. But overall, just the management of employees,
mm-hmm.
as an owner has is has to be your number one
Yeah,
headache. If you get good ones, and I've had tons of them, but I've had some that have been challenging, and those can really bring you down. And
yeah.
I've only had to fire two people, actually kind of three, but one of them quit first,
Ah,
which I don't think is too bad in 30 years.
no, I wouldn't say
But
so.
and the people that I fired deserved it, but it was the hardest thing
Yeah,
to do because these are people, and you're taking away their source of income, even though they deserved it,
yeah. And
in my opinion.
you want to treat people like you want to be treated. You'd want people to give you a chance, yet
Right.
they've gotten to that point. You're like, I
Yeah.
have to do this for the other people in the clinic. You know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. And then the other least favorite part, and I've been reminded of this just this morning twice. And this is nothing, that anybody who listens to this isn't going to understand, but it's dealing with certain people with money.
yeah,
You want to help these animals, and you want to do everything you can, but for whatever reason, people don't understand that you also have to keep
yeah,
your business afloat in order to help anybody.
yeah,
They think, oh, you love animals. Why aren't you doing this for free?
yeah,
And no matter what you say, you can't. It just seems like you're, trying to justify whatever, but that's frustrating as well.
yeah,
And that's not, that's a minority, but that minority is
yeah.
vocal.
And those stick with you too.
Yeah,
'Cause you want to do you. I think our minds are trained to figure out how to do more, and
yeah,
there's not always, uh, you know, without sometimes too much sacrifice,
yeah.
uh, the ability to do that. Yeah.
No.
Um, what any warnings to the people coming into the profession or profession problems you see, like, hey, make sure don't do this, or
Um, don't assume anything about anybody. Going back to what we were just saying, don't assume that somebody, just because of how they look or how they talk or how they act, that they won't be willing to do whatever they can for their pet.
Mhm.
I've made that mistake. And conversely, don't assume that just because somebody, the way they look, act, that they are going to do it. You may think, oh, I know these people. They come from money. They won't care what this costs. Well, they
Mhm.
might. So be transparent about money. Give
Yeah.
estimates. Say, this is what, before you go, this is what we're going to do. This is what it's going to cost. Do you want me to do that? And if not, don't judge them. Come up with another option.
Yeah.
And if you run out of options, then but I always try to give options, like with our parvo talk.
Yeah.
You can say, okay, if you want to hospitalize it with IV fluids, this, and this is what it'll be. If you don't, for whatever reason, then
Mhm.
we can do sub-Q fluids and this and this. And if you don't want that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But don't just assume based upon appearances. The other thing is, as far as the patients go, don't get tunnel vision. And again, this is something that everybody does, and I've done it, and I still do it, and I know better. But if you have, uh, here's an example from today. Lady calls up, says, I think my dog got something stuck in its throat. I've been practicing for 30 and a half years, and I've heard that I don't know how many times, and I've had exactly one animal with something stuck in its throat. Okay. But the one today, I thought, there's nothing stuck in that dog's throat.
Mhm.
But unless I see it, I don't know. It may be that one.
Yeah.
And I remember the one that came in, and then I was like, there's never anything in the dog's throat. And by golly, there was. And so, don't look at the dog, look at the animal, try to have an open mind and let them tell you the story. Let them tell you what's wrong versus you going in and saying, okay, this dog's shaking its head, it's got a yeast infection in its ears.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you and don't skimp on the physical exam, get a routine and do the same thing, nose to tail every time, and you're not going to miss stuff. And I have missed stuff. I'm telling you, there's probably not a mistake I haven't made. So I'm not preaching, I'm teaching.
If you haven't made it, I've probably made it. So between um anyone you want to thank for where you are in the profession or getting into through the
So
profession?
so I'm going to go back to my undergrad days at Transylvania University, and Dr. Lila Boyarsky was my advisor, and she's the one that really got me in on the biology, not necessarily veterinary medicine, but biology track. I would be remiss if I didn't thank my wife for sticking. She was a respiratory therapist. She got her degree right before we moved to Tennessee to vet school, and she put me through vet school. So she should be number one. She is. And then Doctors Hayden and Boyd from where, I worked and I bought. Um, those guys taught me the real world stuff. You come out of
Yeah.
school, and I could have treated a Cushing dog, with my eyes closed. But
Yeah.
I had never done a C-section.
Yeah.
I mean, it's stuff like that. And they taught me a lot of the common sense stuff.
Uh, yeah.
Um, and you're not going to get into school just because, I mean, that's just the way it is. It's
Mhm.
life. And those would be the four the four main people.
Yeah. Would you do it all again?
Absolutely. I would. Knowing if I knew exactly, I mean, obviously I'd make some changes in that. If I knew what I knew now, there were some mistakes I wouldn't make. But as far as my life path, I don't know that I would change anything.
Thank you for sharing all this. I've enjoyed hearing it. It filled in a few blanks I didn't know about you, but
Good, good.
also when I was talking to someone else, I was like, it's helping balance me as well. So I hope
Uh-huh.
that people will hear that and be like, wait a second, maybe my life isn't as chaotic as I think it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
good. I hope that helps.
yeah, no, I appreciate the time and sharing and then of course we'll both miss Primor. So
That's right.
I'm Dr. Nathan. Thanks for listening. I hope our discussions are valuable to you and aid in giving perspective. If you want to contact us, please reach out to theveterinarypodcast@gmail.com. You can find a complete list of the podcast episodes on SoundCloud. If you find this information helpful and want more content, please join our Patreon, patreon.com/theveterinarypodcast. And don't forget to follow our Facebook page, facebook.com/theveterinarypodcast. As always, thanks for listening, and I hope this information is helpful to you. If you do find it helpful, please like it, share it, so other people may find it helpful as well.